Hey Overwatch agents, my name is Coach Arodi, and today we are gonna be taking another look at Overwatch maps. Today's map category we are looking at is escort maps. What are escort maps, how to play in them, and how to ensure victory for your allies. We're gonna start off with the same trick as we did in the last video. Start by picking a map and loading it into the custom game. In this example, we'll be using Route 66, an oldie, but a goodie. What you want to do is explore the map. While exploring the map, you want to have knowledge of good sniping points, locations of the med packs, and the routes where enemies could come from if they are returning from battle. Having this knowledge will assist you in team fights and getting early picks on the enemy team. Since we're here, exploring the map, let's talk about some differences designs-wise of control maps and escort maps. While control maps have plenty of space to hide and have narrow hallways, escort maps have a much more open area, allowing snipers to be much more present as there is less space to hide. So be careful about an enemy Widowmaker or even an enemy Hanzo. Before we get into how to play in an escort type of map, we first have to discuss what is an escort map. An escort map is a map where you push a payload to 3 checkpoints on the map. Unlike control maps where the objective doesn't move from its original position, your entire goal here is to push the payload to the other side of the map if you're on the push side. If you're on the defense side, your goal is to prevent it from reaching all 3 checkpoints within the time limit. On escort maps, you also have a few mechanics to be aware of. Firstly is escorting the payload. The attacking team needs to stay on the payload in order to actually push it towards the checkpoint. Depending on the amount of people on the payload, it can move much faster. Another mechanic is respawn points. After a team reaches a checkpoint, the spawn point changes for both teams, with the attacking team being closer to the checkpoint they have just attained, while the defending team is much farther towards the second or even third point of the map. Finally is the timer. Each round in an escort map starts off by giving the attackers 4 minutes to push to the checkpoint. Once a checkpoint is captured, the attackers are given an extra 2 minutes and 30 seconds on top of their current timer to push to the next checkpoint. Now that you've explored a map or two, it's time to discuss the payload itself. In escort maps, the objective here is to move the payload to the checkpoint. Payload moves by attacking team sitting on the payload. The more members you have on the payload, the faster it moves. But the drill here is knowing how many people you want to have on the payload. Most of the time it is recommended to have your team on the payload. When you end up reaching the enemy team, you can leave the payload as in order to push, you will need to get rid of the enemy team. So flankers can flank and snipers can get into positions. For defending teams, it is important that you stop the payload from pushing to checkpoints. In order to do that, you will need to get on the point to contest them. Only one member needs to be on the point for contesting. While the point is contested, you want to get good picks on the enemy team to force them to back. It is good to target the healers or low mobility damage dealers. After getting these picks, it will force the pushers to back away. Following them to try and gather another pick is good to force them to wait longer for a regroup, but try not to get killed in the process or else it makes your team a little weaker to defend. With all that information, it's time to take that into the battleground. For practice, here's some good things to practice for each side. On attack, keep track of the time and payload, as you only have a limited time to get to an objective. If you're getting stuck on a point, look for a flank to help your team push if you are damaged. If you're support, try to switch to see if your team needs more support in terms of healing or more damage. Finally, for tanks, you may need to switch to a more damaged frontliner in order to force a push. For defense, make sure you have control of the high ground from the enemy team. Picks are highly important to prevent fast pushing or pushing at altogether. Supports want to play around cover while keeping their sense high, alerts for flankers. For tanks, make sure you're staying in front of your team to keep control. Escort maps are a very different style of playing the game, as you must move from the objective to actually be able to, play the game. Making sure it hits the checkpoints to make progress. but the best way to learn is playing the game mode and having fun. This is the second video of a 4-part video about maps is over. Next video we'll be talking about hybrid maps. I'm Coach Arodi and I'm excited to see you agents next time.